Good afternoon. The Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust for November 24th. Be in order. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the November 10th meeting.
Move approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Are there comments, questions, additions, corrections? Anything? Hearing none. Minutes are approved. Next item is the consent docket.
Move the consent docket, subject to individual consideration.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket, subject to individual consideration. Are there items to be discussed separately? Hearing none. Voting, please. Consent docket's approved. Next item is a concurrence docket. 3 items.
Move the concurrence docket, subject to individual consideration.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the concurrence docket. Are there matters to be looked at separately? Hearing none. Voting, please. Concurrence docket's approved. Next item is the
I move we defer item 5 until the next council or next trust meeting.
Second.
now we have 4 people. What?
We only have 3. Oh, we have a 4th vote.
Now we have
I move for approval of item 5.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second to approve the emergency construction contract on the North Bay Avenue project. Voting, please. Item 5 is approved. Next item, item 6, item for individual consideration. First one is a water service contract with the City of Oklahoma City, the City of Norman, and the Norman Utilities Authority.
So, Mr. Chairman, this is a 10-year contract with Norman. They anticipate their average demand will be right at 1 million gallons a day. We're very excited to have Norman renew a contract that had been dormant for some time. They're changing rates from demand to service availability consistent with our new rate structure.
Any comments, questions?
Move approval.
Have a motion and a second to approve item 6A. Voting, please. Contract's approved, or the agreement is approved. Next item, B, a resolution ratifying an amendment to the Severn Trent Services for Management of Water Treatment Facilities.
Mr. Chairman, this is a recommendation from staff to negotiate an agreement with Severn Trent Services for management, operation, and maintenance of our wastewater treatment facilities, which includes our industrial waste treatment program. Staff received, the city received 7 proposals through its electronic bidding, 3 proposals through its electronic bidding system. We took and responded to 53 questions electronically as a part of that process. There was our consultant, CDM Smith, assisted in many ways, but particularly with vetting references and reviewing existing projects among the competitors. The technical review committee, assisted by CDM Smith, summarized and reviewed the proposals in great detail. So there was vetting based on qualifications, based on proposals. Each proposer submitted innovative and creative ideas to explore. Staff recommends Severn Trent for their lowest price and highest number of people supporting the contract. Severn Trent has 1,400 employees in the United States and almost 400 current contracts for operations.
Mr. Chairman, Severn Trent is obviously a large firm, does a lot of work. They had a misstep in southern Oklahoma earlier this summer. Have we done or will we do our due diligence on that to understand what happened and the ramifications?
We do. We've been in contact with ODEQ about the issues on a personal level, but ODEQ is speaking out about that a little bit to say that it's in dispute at this time. So I think the most important thing I can tell you is there's no doubt that that's a significant embarrassment for the company. I wouldn't play that any other way. However, that we did meet with them individually. We believe that they have addressed the problems to the best of their ability at this time. I believe that their path forward is appropriate. How it will play out will be between them, DEQ, and apparently an individual private lawsuit. That all being said, they do have the skills to do our work, and something that's different about this contract for us is that we have the ability, because of our size, to actively engage in the contract operations on a daily basis. We have at least one person on site checking how things are going, looking at the reports in advance to make certain they're accurate. In other words, while a decision to contract operate is always a large one, in our case, the larger, and in the case of other large utilities, we have the ability to make certain that things are going right.
The quality control, there's a couple of things. It was in the paper, and what was reported in the paper may or may not be totally accurate, but so there's probably a lot more to the story than we know about that.
Yes.
But from the face value, it appears that they had a significant misstep on that. And I want to make sure that we have adequate quality control, as you just mentioned, talking about quality control, to go forward to make sure that we assure that we're meeting our discharge permit requirements.
I believe your general counsel, and I will take that to heart if we're authorized to negotiate a contract. We'll make certain that we bring back more information about how we've protected you.
This is a different contract than the one that they had in Hugo. This is a wastewater management as
Yes.
opposed to a drinking water management contract, right?
Yes.
Which is one of the reasons, because of the things that happen, is one of the reasons I've never been comfortable contracting out water operations. Wastewater contract is so much more defined because you have very specific DEQ or discharge requirements. You've got an EPA permit with discharge requirements on it, and it's very concrete whether they meet that. Water, you have specific drinking water standards, but the more you are below those, there's a health effect that goes with it. So it's harder just to say meet these requirements. Well, you really don't want them meeting just the bare minimums of the requirements on drinking water. On wastewater, those requirements are designed so you can meet the minimums on it. Drinking water is a health benefit to go beyond those. So it is a little bit different animal.
I would question one comment you made that this was a mild misstep. I can tell you, that's like the definition of major minor surgery. I mean, if that happened to us, that'd be a big deal.
Yeah.
And I suspect it was a big deal to people that live in Hugo also.
No doubt.
I just want to be comfortable at the end of the day that we're not, we didn't overlook something. Because, again, I haven't been to Hugo. I didn't try to drink the water, but I followed it in the newspaper if somebody is interested. And it's an ugly story. And I've had ugly stories about me in the newspaper, none of which were true. And so I understand how that works, but it certainly bears making sure that we're comfortable with this decisions, because this is a big deal. It's not something that, and that story down Hugo is a big deal. They need to fix that just from a standpoint of the kind of heat we're going to take if we do this contract with them, whether they're the best one or not.
From my perspective, I am a little bit concerned about moving forward with the negotiation based upon that particular incident until I could get some additional information. And then when we look to the next two companies that submitted bids, their prices tend to be a little bit more closely aligned. I'm just wondering if this first company overlooked something or plans to make modifications to where they could, meet their objectives from a profitability and still maintain this budget amount. And then finally, I'd ask the current provider, Veolia, They've been a provider to the city for many years, haven't they?
Yeah, for almost 3 decades.
And have we had problems, significant problems with that company?
They have not actually been the provider that long. They purchased a company that has been the provider.
Yeah, you're correct, actually. Yeah, that's right.
So anyway, from a business perspective, if we've developed confidence in a particular company, we're reluctant to make a move even if it can save us a few dollars. I guess the question is the difference between these two bidders significant enough for us to make that type of a change? So, yes.
Mr. Chairman, trustees, a lot of work was put in by staff and by CDM Smith with their assistance. And what we looked for in this RFP and in the proposed contract that's attached to the RFP was to upgrade the communications and the responsibilities of the operator.
Okay.
And so there was a lot of energy put into that. And so when we looked for responses, we looked for a company who could provide us the quality controls and assurances that we need.
Okay.
And the responses from Severn Trent were generically better and more compliant with our need for quality control than they were from the existing contractor.
Okay. All right. That's helpful. Thank you.
And it is over $1.5 million a year, so that it's about 12% of the project cost, between 11 and 12% of the project cost. So it's not a insignificant cost savings.
No, I agree. The difference between the first and third bidder is significant. I agree with that. I was just looking at the difference between the second and third bidder. If we came to the conclusion that the problem that the first bidder has had recently was significant enough for us to question their ability to, do a good, thorough job for us.
Well, would it be wise to maybe defer this for 2 weeks until we can get a further briefing on the Hugo situation and what happened and what their remedies might be?
I was going to ask for 2 weeks. And what I'd like is just, I don't have any idea, I don't have any reason to believe that you guys haven't thoroughly, that we have our system is something that I think all of us that sit on this trust are very proud of. And it's because of the kind of job that staff does in making sure we don't make a mistake. So I don't have any reason to believe. But I'd like to be a little bit more comfortable in that in light of the publicity over the last 6 months or so.
I'll move we defer for 2 weeks.
Second.
A
May
motion.
I ask a question?
Sure.
When does the current contract expire? Or when does this new one begin?
January 1st, 2017.
Okay, so 2 weeks
This is not-
No.
won't create a problem.
No.
Yeah, no, 2 weeks won't create a problem.
Yeah.
It's a year off.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second to defer this matter for 2 weeks. Voting, please. Matter's deferred. Next item is items from trustees. Any comments from trustees?
No, thank you.
Anybody?
Just want to compliment Marcia on her upgrade on the bond credit rating to being AAA rated from both Moody's and S&P.
Oh, congratulations to all of you. This is pretty exciting.
That's not insignificant. As much debt as we're going to be looking forward to with the Atoka pipeline and such. Having the best credit rating gives us the lowest interest rates, which will serve our ratepayers well.
That's especially timely. We talked about that earlier today, but that's especially timely in light of the fact that we've got these projects coming up that are going to require the expenditure of lots of bond financing, and to have a better credit rating is just literally money in the bank.
So Moody's holds rates on 372 water and wastewater utilities that are combined water and wastewater utilities, and we're one of 12 in the AAA. So pretty exciting. It's rare territory.
So again, they've rated 372 water utilities and only have 3 AAAs.
What, No, sorry, water and wastewater utilities.
Water and
the
wastewater utilities, combined water and wastewater
And
utilities.
we're the 12th of, there are now 12
Okay.
total in AAA. They also rate water utilities individually. It's 311 utilities, and it's a proportionately fewer number in that. It's about 20 overall in the AAA, water separately or water and wastewater combined.
That's great.
Very exciting.
Next is the general manager report. The first thing is a status update on the South Lake Hefner land use project.
So we provide some information in your packet about what's happened thus far on our land use project. We met with our consultant mass architects, held 2 charrette-style meetings in early November. We got a lot of feedback from citizens, much of which is still being compiled, but the long and short of it is citizens don't really want to see particularly land development along South Lake Hefner Drive. What I have suggested, and this would be something, I apologize for the maps. They're difficult to read in black and white. So if you look at the potential recreation improvement area, that is everything from Portland Avenue, which is on the east, the right side of the map, around following South Lake Hefner Drive, and then coming due south to the back of the neighborhood. The first map, the potential commercial development area, would now show specifically a limit to the area. It would show you the 5-acre tract that was originally discussed, and then it describes it originally discussed in the Lake Hefner Recreation Master Plan. And it shows you a dotted line around an area that would be a transition zone. Some of that may be additional commercial development towards the highway. The rest of it may be a transition to the trailhead that will exist at the corner of Meridian and Northwest Highway. It may become different types of low-use, low-impact recreation uses that might be a stroller kind of trail. It might be other kinds of things, which we're trying to get information from the neighborhood about what they would like to see. So, miles to go on that project.
Any comments? Any other comments?
You know, I think the due diligence we're doing is well-founded, and we should continue that. I understand the reluctance to do anything out of Lake Hefner. I understand that it's personal. It's where people recreate, and I've been through enough of things over the years that I really understand that. That being said, I do think that the property on Northwest Expressway really doesn't feel like it's part of the reservation to me. But again, I know if you live there and such, you might have a different opinion. But you know, if you're riding your bike out there, as I do, you don't even see that property. I mean, you wouldn't even know whether that property was something else or not. I get the stuff along the South Hefner Road, but Northwest Expressway, to me at least, seems like a different deal.
Well, I think you could still maintain the quality of the recreational area and limit the development along Northwest Expressway to certain types of development and still have a good environment for the trail itself.
Well, I think the trust was taking a broader look at it to see if there's any other things that could be done, because there's some land that isn't highly, you know, that's, and all parkland doesn't have to be developed, and there's a lot of undeveloped parkland in that area. And so I think the thought was, could there be a coffee shop in there that would be generated toward the recreation users or something along that? Is there something else that would be amenable to the recreators and the residents in the area? And I think basically the answer to that was pretty much no.
That's what I heard.
And so, but that's not on Northwest Expressway. That would be, you know, and at Draper that might be a different answer. But at Hefner, that was the answer that came forth.
I will say, riding 10-plus miles does build up your appetite and your thirst. And so something that would accommodate that, I think, we could find that would fit in well. At least that's what I attribute to my appetite to, is the exercise. Maybe there's some misconnection.
Well, one of the things I think we have an obligation to look at this. I agree with Jim in that we have to revisit this, and we have to revisit it. And anybody that got the impression at any time that the city wouldn't revisit it or didn't have the authority or ability to revisit it, I think if that promise was made, it should never have been made. No, this is the water trust, water utility, wastewater utility is an enterprise. We do the very best we can within the law to run it like a business. One of the things I hear as a councilman all the time is, well, if you ran it like a business, well, we can't run it like a business. I have a nephew that needs a job and I can't hire him. But we can run it like a business from a fiscal management standpoint, and you don't let assets that have the potential value of some of the assets along the edge of the lake go without investigating as to what the highest and best use are and what we'd use the money for. The other thing I think people need to recognize is that we have a very limited ability to provide recreational opportunities at the lake. The revenues from water are pledged to keeping the water system working. So we have to find other sources of revenue to provide any kind of recreation there. If we do something with this property, it would at least give us the potential to fund trails, all the kinds of things that people need, and maintenance, all the things that we need to do to maintain a recreational area. So I'm all in favor of continuing to look at it to do the best job we can, within the understanding that people do want open space, and I agree with that. If they really want a lot of it, they could move out in my ward where they can get plenty of it. Any other comments? Okay, the next thing is the status, the monthly pro forma report.
So income is pretty much on track as forecast. We're about $400,000 low on the water side. Expenses are down in large part because we're not pumping from Lake Atoka, which I'll describe in just a minute. Wastewater income is just really on target completely, and operation costs are about $1 million below target. So things look very favorable there. Would you like me to move on to item C? That would be the lake level report.
Let me ask you a question about it. We talked a lot about when we did the rates, about the price elasticity. If we raised rates, would that decrease water? Is there anything in this, and I know it's a very early date to be able to measure something like that, but is there anything that we have that would indicate that price increase may have had some impact on water usage?
When we had the staff come and give you the presentation last time, we showed that the typical monthly consumption for residential customers has gone down about 1,000 gallons a month. We had that a number of months back from a regression analysis. That then means that there's less sewer revenue being produced, and we are seeing about $2 million below our anticipation on sewer revenue production, and we think part of that's due to conservation. The trust has approved an amendment to the Arcadis contract, the firm that we hired to do the original cost of service study, to do phase 2 of the cost of service study. And they're working with staff to get that together so that sometime late 16, early 17, you'll be able to see the results of that. And with that will also be the alternative to provide for a third block. That'll be something we'll bring to you as an option if you're interested in pursuing a third inclining block as a part of that cost service.
2 points. One is that we haven't set the new winter-based rates yet, so how do we know a lot of the water usage is residential for the outdoor water usage, and they're based off of winter-based rates which haven't been set yet, so how would that affect our sewer income, wastewater income?
Or what are the rates we're supposed to be able to produce compared to what they are producing? Part of the cost service study.
Okay. And then, of course, it was unseasonably both cool and wet summer, which would mitigate the effects of the people on water as much, so they're not feeling the pressure of the inclining blocks.
Yes, we have some data that we're pretty comfortable with, but it doesn't show us the extremes. In fact, it shows us probably the low end. So the good news is we're making progress. Quantifying it still remains.
Yeah, I've always been a bit skeptical of the price elasticity in water, not because I don't understand it as an economic theory, but I believe it would have to take a much more dramatic increase than we put into effect to see a real impact in the elasticity of the use of water vis-a-vis the rates. It just doesn't make sense to me that a little bit of an increase like we put in would have much of an impact. But I want to keep monitoring it because it's something we need to think about as we go forward.
We also do.
May I ask a question, unless you're planning to look at item 8C, the water
Go ahead, sir.
schedule? All of the lakes are showing improved levels except for Draper, unless I'm misreading it.
No.
What's the reason for that? I know a couple of years ago we were draining Draper, but I thought we were in the process of refilling it.
We had reached full, and in last spring's storms, we suffered a break in or a loss of support. Pardon me. Okay. The Tucker Pipeline crosses the river at about Bing, and we lost a support structure, pieces of support in the high floodwaters. So the pipeline's been down now since May or June, and we're getting ready to start the construction on the repair. We know that we're about 10 feet down from full, which will continue to get worse. It will not get as low as it did when we had the pipeline down for the reconstruction work on the pump stations that we did about 3 years ago. And we've produced a game plan for how we catch the lake back up. And frankly, that's going to take a couple of years to get it full. We've also been able to use, because of the heavy rains we had last spring and refilling Lake Hefner, we have been able to use continuously more water out of Hefner and operating the Overholser plant to help keep the demand from the Draper plant as low as possible. So where normally we would be pumping about 60% of our water from Draper, 40% from Hefner and Overholser, the reverse is true right now.
And we've now gained access to the area that needs repaired and all that.
Yes, we're ready to go. Today you authorized the final permit that we required of the Corps of Engineers. We are out for bids on the project.
It's actually the crossing of the South Canadian River.
Okay, thank you.
It's painful to have seen it full for a while and
Yeah.
watch it go back down again.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But it's just one of those things we can't control.
And so on item C, yes, the McGee Creek and Lake Tucker are both very full because we haven't been removing water from there. Lake Canton has dropped about a foot over the last several months, which is fairly normal for it to lose water into the alluvial aquifer next to the lake. Lake Overholser is about 5 feet down. Lake Hefner is about 4 feet down, and we are geared up for heavy rains over the weekend.
Any other comments? Citizens, no one has signed up to speak. Thank you. We're adjourned.